You go down and then you go up to make it better, make it better. Down on the ground, it's just one way up. Make it better, make it better. If you stand by me, I will stand by you. To make it better, make it better.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Rise Up with Rebecca Seawright on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. I'm Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright, serving the Upper East Side, Yorkville, and Roosevelt Island, hosting today from our East 79th Street, Upper East Side District Office. Over 3 weeks ago, the state of Israel was brutally and horrifically attacked by the terrorist group Hamas. They killed and wounded innocent children, parents, grandparents, kidnapped loved ones, and relentlessly fired missiles at civilian areas. While Israel has worked to protect those inside the country, over 200 hostages remain in Gaza, and the rocket fire continues unabated. The war has affected many people here in New York and in our nation. Anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate crimes overall have risen. Families feel unsafe. Many have lost loved ones overseas, and humanitarian concerns continue to grow. As a member of the New York State Assembly, I've sponsored important legislation and initiatives to combat intolerance against the Jewish community and others. They have become even more vital at this urgent hour. Governor Hochul signed a bill that I proudly sponsored, which mandates counseling to individuals convicted of hate crimes. Education is an important key to tolerance and is essential for keeping New York safe from violent anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and other forms of hate. Furthermore, Speaker Carl Hastie, Assembly Member and Chairwoman Helene Weinstein, and I worked to secure $1.5 million for a mobile museum of tolerance run by the Simon Wiesenthal Center. We have also hosted town halls about anti-Semitism and panel discussions with Jewish organizations and helped support vigils and relief drives. These conversations and actions have become even more vitally important as we learn more about the situation in Israel and how vital groups like JCRC are supporting New Yorkers. My team shares JCRC's desire to inform and advocate for New York's Jewish community and Israel during this difficult and most challenging time. That's why I'm very pleased to welcome today one of our special guests. Noam Gilboord serves as interim CEO at the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, known as JCRC. And in this role, he provides leadership to the senior management team, coordinates organizational advocacy and activities, develops and implements strategic planning processes, and acts as a liaison to a wide range of partnering organizations. Additionally, he manages JCRC's New York's Commission on Israel and International Affairs, which acts to familiarize and build bridges between New York's ethnic, faith, and political leadership at the State of Israel through creative outreach, programming, dynamic missions to Israel, and by leading the agency's advocacy efforts toward a strong and secure Israel and a two-state solution. Noam also oversees the production of the Celebrate Israel Parade, the world's largest public event in support of Israel. Previously, he served as Director of Community Strategy at the Jewish Federation of North America's Israel Action Network. He is a recognized expert in challenging anti-Israel campaigns in the city councils, churches, academic associations, college campuses, food co-ops, and investment funds. And I also had the distinct pleasure of joining him on a JCRC mission trip to Israel in 2019, along with my colleagues. So Noam, welcome to today's show.
Thank you
Thank you for
me.
coming on.
It's a pleasure, my honor.
So tell us what JCRC has been doing and how our viewers can get involved since the attack and the war in Israel, and how it has affected your role at JCRC in New York.
Sure. October 7th was a Saturday. And I like to sleep. I usually sleep in a little bit longer on Saturday morning. And at about 7 a.m., I heard my phone buzzing. Not the normal buzzes of regular emails from Wayfair or Target, but a real constant, frantic buzzing. And I knew something was wrong. I picked up my phone, which I don't normally do, being Sabbath observant, and I had texts from a bunch of different WhatsApp groups with different community leaders, with different academic leaders, with different elected leaders that I'm regularly in touch with, all of them sharing about the news from southern Israel about Hamas's attacks that by that time were still taking place in real time. And it was scary. I shot out of bed and I did not stop working for days and days and days. It was as if a friend of mine said, Noam, it was as if you went to war, which is, only a turn of phrase. I have friends in Israel who are actually going to war right now, and it's terrifying for me. The news, the images that we saw, I thought were from the past. As you know, Assembly member, when we go on our JCRC, now known as study tours to Israel, we often go to Yad Vashem, which is Israel's Holocaust Memorial and Museum. And there, often the folks we bring are exposed to images from the Holocaust, victims of the Holocaust, and for the first time. And it's a heavy, emotional, and transformative experience for many. I got to tell you, for me, it's the same, but I'm also a little bit happy when we go there because those images are from history. Those images are the past. My parents' generation didn't have to deal with that. They knew many survivors. They were taught by survivors. They're survivors in their communities. I knew survivors growing up as my friends' grandparents. But I didn't think that the horrors that those survivors witnessed would ever be something that I would be. I never thought I would see similar images to those again. And the images that I saw broadcast by terrorists on social media, and later what I found out has happened to people. It wasn't just a run in and shoot as many people as you can, but the torturing, the slaughtering, the kidnapping, the raping, the burning of babies, the beheading of babies. These are atrocities from another era, and I thought that era was gone. And I am greatly disturbed even now that some of the leadership in New York, as you know, are not unequivocally standing up and saying that that is wrong. Some are even seeking to justify that, as if victim blaming is going to get us closer to peace between Israelis and Palestinians. There is literally no empathy amongst some people for Israeli civilians, no empathy for women who were raped by terrorists, no empathy for families that will never see for children that will never see their parents again. And quite frankly, I'm very bothered by that. We saw in May 2021, as you know, because I believe your office was a victim of this in the past, we see a rise in anti-Semitism that is correlated with events in the Middle East when Israel and Hamas are at war. We see a rise in anti-Semitic incidents in New York. That is holding Jews responsible for what goes on there. That is anti-Semitism, and that should not be tolerated. More of our elected officials should be as vocal as you are in opposing this. It has made you asked about our work. How has it made our work more challenging? Our work in building bridges with different communities is founded in the idea of seeing the humanity in one another. And when our humanity is dismissed as less valuable, that the 1,400 people, civilians in southern Israel that were whose lives were taken from them, men, women, children, the elderly, that those lives are somehow not valuable, or that the attacks by this Iranian-backed, recognized terrorist organization was somehow justified. That's abhorrent. You must seriously reassess your moral calculus if you are siding with the people who are siding with Hamas, if you are somehow conducting verbal gymnastics to justify these attacks. It doesn't help. My humanity and the humanity of the Jewish people is no less valuable than anyone else's. One other thing I want to say right off the bat, because I know this will come up sometime. For those who are saying that this is an Israeli campaign to ethnically cleanse Gaza of Palestinians, of genocide against the Palestinians, I want to be very, very clear that that is not at all something that JCRC supports or something that the Jewish people in general support. To make it very clear, genocide is not the way of the Jewish people now, nor has it ever been. This is a war against Hamas. This is a necessary campaign by the Israeli defense forces to make sure that such an attack can never happen again. And the world needs to understand that. The world did understand that in the days following the attacks. But all of a sudden, as we know from history, world opinion shifts and starts to blame the Jews for something. That's not a good place to be. I have colleagues who are much older and wiser who refer to the Jewish community as the canary in the coal mine. And I got to tell you, if this is what's happening for my people and my nation right now, it's only a matter of time before it starts happening to other people. That is not the way we should have the world going. And I urge the members of the Assembly, the Senate, the City Council, and Congress to do everything that they can to make sure that they defend the right of Israel to stand up for itself, to defend itself against this terrorist organization, to make sure that the hundreds of hostages, civilians as young as 9 months, are brought home to their families, and that people understand and have moral clarity that this is not a war of Israel on the Palestinian people. We support a two-state solution. We want to make sure that both peoples have the absolute right to live in peace and dignity, two states side by side with good relations between one another. Mm-hmm. This is not genocide. This is not ethnic cleansing. And we want to be very clear that this is about attacking Hamas, a brutal terrorist organization that committed the atrocities that we all saw on the internet. That's not something we should see.
Well, thank you, Noam. We deeply appreciate your words. And, you know, my office was the victim of an anti-Semitic attack, both my government office and my campaign office. And we sponsored legislation and passed it that the governor signed to strengthen our hate crime laws, as I mentioned earlier. But what steps is JCR taking to build bridges in the Jewish community with others during this critical time? And you're doing such good work, and I want our viewers to hear exactly what you're doing, and if you could share us a little bit about that.
Sure. So our work is, we sort of have a dual strategy on when it comes to these particular issues, and I'll say anti-Semitism in general, which I know is a much wider topic. The most important one is our Center for Shared Society, run by my colleague Rabbi Bob Kaplan, who is a legend in this world. JCRC's primary responsibility as a community relations organization is to reach out and develop relationships, to build bridges between the Jewish community and other community leaders. And that way, we are constantly in conversation, we are in dialogue, and we are working on a number of coalitions at any given time to help better the quality of life for all residents of New York. That's very important. You got to be in coalition and conversation with people all the time, not about Israel-Palestine, but about things that are hitting us locally: healthcare disparities, gun violence, senior care, you name the issue. Hate, by the way, hate is something that's very important, not just for the Jewish community, but hate affects everyone. I need not remind you of the anti-Asian hate spike that we have seen over the last few years. And there's
Absolutely.
Islamophobia, there's transphobia, there's homophobia, there's xenophobia, you name it. There is a lot of hate. The Jewish community is very good at reporting hate crimes. And I suspect that if other communities were reporting as much as we were, our statistics would indicate that we are in a much worse place than they currently do. Regrettably, hate affects all of us. So it's incumbent upon us to be in dialogue and in partnership with others so that when these challenges face us, we can have a network in place to deal with the issues that arise. JCRC also has a lot of different fellowships that we run, and these are incredible opportunities for diverse, young and emerging leaders to get together, to build networks of support for themselves, to learn how to manage different projects, to learn how to coexist, understand each other's cultures and develop that sense of cultural competency, learn what is good for other communities and learn what is hateful towards other communities, because you might not know that you're doing something that others would consider hateful at any time. So it's good to know. The other side of this, in terms of our shared society department, is our community security initiative, which is a project, a joint project with UJA Federation of New York. And I gotta tell you, for decades, one fella who you know, David Pollack, ran the security division at JCRC, making sure that the nearly 2,000 Jewish institutions in New York had the ability to protect themselves against people who would want to harm Jews. And there are those people. Our team has expanded now. We have about 16 people who are responsible for providing different kinds of security for these 2,000 Jewish institutions in New York. It's not just synagogues, it's also community centers, it's schools, it's summer camps. There are a lot. Fortunately, New York is home to a lot of Jewish people all over the state. New York has been very warm and hospitable to the Jewish community for a long time, and I hope that doesn't end. But it's a sad day when we need to hire people who are security experts to make sure that we have things on our institutions that will protect us, such as better locks on our doors, better doors that actually lock, bulletproof glass, cameras, that we can't always just open the door to anybody who wants to come into a synagogue. We have to be very careful. People have to be vetted. I didn't grow up with this. I'm 38. Nobody my age grew up with the idea of a guard in front of a synagogue. You wanted to go pray, you went. It is a sad state of affairs when the top priority in the Jewish community, not just in New York, but all over the world, has become security. And I need not tell you about the many different attempted attacks on Jewish institutions there have been. And I regret heavily that I don't believe there's an end in sight right now. It is so important for our elected officials to be very loud and very clear that this is an Israeli war to make sure that Hamas doesn't attack Israeli civilians again. If somebody were doing that on one of America's two borders, if there was a group trying to do that in America, I know we would not be so gracious. We would not be talking about proportionality. We would want to make sure that the threat is eliminated. And having been to some of these communities, as you know, we visited Kibbutz Kfar Aza with members of the assembly just 8 months ago, and members of city council too. They met the people there. They dined in the dining hall. They played basketball on the court with kids who were playing there. We don't know what happened to those people we met right now. They could be fine, God willing. They could be dead. They could be hostages. Who knows what trauma they have found. We expect that our elected officials continue to use their voices to make sure that Israel has a right to defend itself. And I know some people will say, that's a congressional issue. Sure, that's a congressional issue. It's not just a congressional issue. It's important that every legislator speaks out about this. It's not just another round of violence between Israel and Hamas. That's not what this is. This is a turning point. I fear, as you do and many others, that this particular war has the potential of setting off other regional conflict, and nobody wants that. We need our elected officials to understand the necessity for Hamas to be out of Gaza, for the hostages to be returned, and God willing, when we don't have a genocidal terrorist organization on the border with Israel, we can actually move forward towards peace. But as you know, it's very difficult to make peace when you come to the table and you say, hey, let's make peace. And the other says, okay, here's our demand. You go away and we kill you. That's not a good start.
Right, absolutely. What is JCRC doing to support New Yorkers who have friends or family in the Middle East? And what can New Yorkers be doing to step up and offer assistance?
Sure. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that UJA Federation of New York has an emergency fund that I would encourage everybody to visit and donate to at ujafedny.org. And the funds that have been raised are being allocated to lots and lots of different relief funds directly on the ground in Israel. Some are helping the victims who have been personally who have witnessed attacks, who have been attacked. Some are helping with mental health services, and others are providing shelter and all sorts of other items for people who need it. You know, I mentioned my friend who's up at the Lebanese border right now. The north of Israel has been evacuated. The south of Israel has been evacuated. You have people from both north and south of the country converging on the center of the country because they have no other place to go to be protected. That's, you know, can you imagine the northern states and the southern states all being evacuated and moving to, I don't know, the Dakotas? I don't know, but you know, for safety, this is nuts. What New Yorkers can do is, number one, donate to that emergency campaign and relief efforts. Number two, every New Yorker has a voice as well. New Yorkers, to my knowledge, are not very shy about raising their voices.
Right. And if they can't contribute money, they don't have the financial means to contribute money. I would think that, you know, there are many ways to get involved and to show support and to step up and really, really show your support by volunteering your time, working a phone bank, offering help to people who have loved ones and family members. I know a former intern that's near the Lebanon border, literally sleeping with a gun. He's in the military under his face. And it's just so heartbreaking to see what is going on. And I know that many New Yorkers want to get involved and send financial support and volunteer their time and their efforts. So I just encourage everyone to get involved. And Noam, please tell us how can people that want to volunteer, or they want to learn more, they want to stay in touch with JCRC. What is your website? What is the number that people can call if they want to reach JCRC?
Sure. Our website is jcrcny.org. Everyone can visit the website. In terms of volunteering, we're always looking for people who have certain skill sets when it comes to PR, when it comes to public organizing, when it comes to disseminating messages, and people who are community organizers. One of the things that bothers me a lot these days is that there are fringe groups of people who are arguing that they represent the Jewish community, and the Jewish community is not in support of Israel. That just could not be further from the truth. While there is a loud fringe minority, you have the overwhelming majority of the Jewish people in New York and nationwide and all over the world who are staunch supporters of Israel and its right to exist, period. If Hamas lays down its weapons, there will be peace. If Israel lays down its weapons, there will not be another Israel. What we need people to do is to make that case, to do it publicly. And, you talked about volunteering opportunities. It's not just about getting involved with organizations. Check up on your Jews. Call people. How are you doing? How are you affected by this? I don't know about you, but I have my community. It's like we've been in Shiva. It's like we've been mourning now for weeks. Mm-hmm. This is not something we've encountered before. I'm fortunate. I've never had to bury a loved one. I've never had to be in Shiva, but the intensity of our feelings, and then having community members outside of the Jewish community and some inside telling us that our feelings are not valid is terrible. It's heartbreaking, but I'm encouraged by so many people, yourself, many of your colleagues, who have called me. Hey, Noam, just checking in on you. How you doing? How are your friends doing? How's your family? Hey, I heard your sister was there and she was in a bomb shelter on October 7th. Is she okay? Check up on your Jews, people. That's a good thing. It's always good
your
to check
support.
up on people.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And if you could just tell us our viewers your website.
Sure. JCRCNY.org. Feel free to visit. We're also accessible at JCRCNY on Facebook and Twitter. And feel free to contact us, message us, and we will look forward to hearing from you.
Well, I know I'm participating in something later in the week for the Israeli hospital, Sorka, and I just want to encourage everyone to step up, to get involved. I want to thank Noam for sharing your expertise and all that you're doing under your great leadership at JCRC, and for joining us today on the show. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank our viewers for tuning in and watching Rise Up with Rebecca Seawright. Thank you for joining us.